So anyway, that'll take us on to the Flash Annual Issue 4. Mark Waid writing with Craig Brassfield on the art. Or Bracefield, maybe. Probably more like how you say that. So this is a kind of a weird annual, and it's a tie-in to a thing, which... Because this feels really weird on its own. See, when I was reading this, I was like, this is a weird, like, possible future story. What's going on? Is this ever followed up upon? And I don't think it is in Waid's run. I think this is purely about tying into this Armageddon thing that's going on.
Armageddon 2001.
There you go. It's purely, and which for the record, this book was not written in 2001. This book was about 10 years before that, give or take. So this was the future of 2001. Yes. just for the record. So clearly a lot of the characters had stories like this where it was like, here's a possible future. So it's really weird reading this because, like, we know Wally ends up with Linda, we know these things, so it's weird for them to say, oh, he ends up with this woman named Bonnie and they have a kid and we have this weird witness protection story.
Yeah, it makes it kind of murky. Not that it's necessarily bad, but it's kind of like, why it makes it hard to care when you know it's all bullshit. Because at the time, well, it's probably all bullshit anyway. With like, you know, right now, if we have, oh, this is set 10 years in the future, we kind of go, yeah, okay, it's probably bullshit. But there's always the chance of possibly, maybe some writers really liked what that did and kind of incorporate elements of that. Those things do happen. Whereas in this, it's like, yeah, we know exactly what kind of the status quo of the future of this is.
Yeah, because it even sets up this guy from the future who's coming back to try and save the future by altering the past, and he doesn't really factor into it for the rest of the book. It's kind of...
I assume that's part of the event.
Yeah, exactly. But like reading this on its own, it's kind of lackluster. That said, though, I do think it's actually quite well written. There's some moments when, you know, when not Barry, sorry, Freudian slip there. When Wally like puts on the suit again for the first time in the future in 2001. Actually, I think it's really well done. The way he kind of like puts the suit back on, it feels quite exciting. He goes around and goes after all these villains. It really this issue really feels like the Scarlet Speedster returns in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, to compare it to Dark Knight Returns, but. So yeah, it's like Flash Day, and this woman Bonnie comes to talk to Flash, and he's kind of like, "Oh, hello, you're pretty," in his head, and then that's when we sort of jump forward to 2001, and we find out that he's married this woman. He's got under an alias. He's not called Wally anymore.
No, he's
was it Mark? What's his Mark?
No, that doesn't sound right.
No.
I mean, maybe it is, but it doesn't sound familiar to me.
I'm looking for the name. Her name's
Michael.
Michael. There you go.
So Mike, which way goes by. So that's what Mark. All right. I mean, close.
Yeah, I was familiar with those. And they've got a kid, and they set up some interesting things here, where the kid has speed powers, right? It's been passed on to him, but has the protective aura that the Flashes have that sort of protect them from the basically how.
Which is now known as Speed Force.
Yes.
What didn't exist at the time.
Yeah, so the Speed Force didn't pass on to him. It's weird to think about it like that now that we know it's called the Speed Force, but
yeah,
you know, whatever. Again, this is another reason why this feels like a weird like time capsule of an issue that doesn't really have much, you know, merit. But you know, basically the kid, despite the fact that if he uses his speed it could kill him, he dives to save this kid who's about to be hit by a bus. And you know, Wally speeds off with him to the hospital to get him treated, and it's a whole thing. But there's also this plot where the reason why they're using fake names is because basically, like, someone Wally put away, this Diogenes, he like went after like the family members of both of them, and they've been in witness protection for years now, and this guy's finally found them. So he actually, you know, ends up kidnapping the kid from the hospital. He's working with all these villains. He's got this power actually where if he touches you, he actually gets like almost a read of all your memories and hopes and dreams and fears, and he can use that to manipulate basically anyone. So he manipulates Mirror Master at one point.
Yeah, we got a few of the rogues kind of on his list.
Yeah. So this kind of happens. He manipulates Snart. There's a really weird moment towards the end here where Golden Glider like kisses Captain Cold, and I'm like, whoa, what's happening? There's a weird incest plot. But luckily it's explained immediately that this is not Leonard Snart anymore, that she's been like essentially she's been cougering herself around, like getting all these young boyfriends to pretend to be Captain Cold because she wants a partner.
Which still has its whole kind of can of worms to itself.
Yeah, pretend to dress up as my brother. It's weird, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got an odd side to it. But once this is all in play, and like all the rogues are in play, and he has to go off and like try and find his son. This is why he goes back and gets his costume and suits back up again. And
do you know what bugged me at this point as well? He gets less ginger as the issue goes on. Like if you look at him, in his home at the start, he's still very clearly a red-headed man. And by the end, it's a very a chestnut deep brown, and I'm like, what happened here? This is erasure over the course of a single issue.
Speed Force, bro, ain't got to explain shit.
Yeah, explain why you don't exist yet, Speed Force.
Paradox, a villain here that I'm not super familiar with, who can speed up or slow down like a pocket of area in terms of time. So basically, so one of the things that he does in this issue later on is that he makes a circle of the floor, like the time speed up, so that when Wally runs over it, it just collapses because it's as far as that part of the floor is concerned, it's been there for hundreds or thousands of years. So it just crumbles when he
describes his classic trick is speeding up one half of someone's body. Which sounds kind of terrifying, actually.
Yeah, let's bring this guy back. This is actually quite a cool power set, to be honest. I can get into this. So,
do you know what, actually, in the upcoming solicits, was Paradox not a thing?
I don't remember what we talk about in solicits.
The name rings a bell, so maybe I'm just kind of putting that in now, but...
Yeah, maybe. So while he goes, because he's riding, it goes out of the Flash costume, speeds around, deals with, Weather Wizard, and... because each one has a clue to where the next person is before he can get to his son, and also each one zaps him with this gun, which doesn't seem to do anything at first, but he realizes after each one that it's sapping his speed bit by bit. And the plan of the villain, Diogenes, is he's going to give his son all of Wally's speed. He's got like a lab set up, it's all going into like a big chamber, all his speed is literally like an energy in like a container. So really funny, but there's some fun sequences here. Wally on the baseball field with Weather Wizard. They are pretty solid, I think, for the most part. It's not everything's great, but like I do think some of the stuff with him in costume looks quite fun.
Yeah, it's solid. The odd like face, which is kind of a bit too bulky or something. But overall, it's not bad.
Yeah. Wally's swimming in super speed, levitating with tornado arms. Just all these little things as he's running around.
Yeah.
Good fun. So this is good. What's the color quill? What's he called? And Keystone.
I can't remember his name.
Rainbow Raider. That's what I'm trying to think of. Yeah, that's not one that's used that often anymore.
It should be. I think it gives the art a nice pop at that point.
Yeah, it's a very different style because the colouring changes.
Yeah. Speaking of villains, I actually just checked. Paradox is a thing coming up in the solicits. I don't know if it's the same Paradox, but they're talking about Paradox and time travel, so maybe.
Probably. Unfortunately, the Flash right now has been kind of shitty for a while, so I'm not feeling super excited about it, but it's cool. The Paradox is coming back. I'm all for it. And eventually Captain Cold and Golden Glider, but not Snart. They're at an airfield, and Wally again has to take care of them. So there's a lot of action scenes here. We're going through really quickly because it's just lots of action. It's lots of Wally running around, and
this is kind of where the issue. I felt myself kind of getting a little bit bored because I was just like, it's one after another. There's nothing breaking up. They got really no context.
Well, it's an almost 60-page annual. It's pretty meaty. It's like
it is, but like there's like a good 10 pages here where I felt like they were just running up the page count of like, just throwing some action stuff.
Especially since for us an annual's like 40 pages. We're used to it being less. But like I said, the fun stuff with the floor falling down because Paradox has made the time advance quicker there. I really like some of the inventiveness of some of this. So it's an interesting little precursor to like the actual run proper, because when we get to the end of this and you see the cover of the next issue is the start of like it's not called Flash Year 1, I don't think. It's Born to Run or whatever, but it's Wally's 6-issue origin story. Like so it's kind of nice that we're going to be getting that. We're going to have that overlapping with Batman Year 1. Although Batman will be alternate with the detective though, so that won't happen too quickly. But that's what it is. But fun stuff. So at the end of the issue, Wally makes the choice to not take his speed back. He gives it to his son so that he can run safely, implying that maybe one day his son will be the new Flash.
Yeah, because he gives him the ring as well with the costume. So it's like, yeah, that's going to be a thing.
Yeah, and then someone in the hospital knocks over like a tray of food or whatever, and Wally goes to try and grab it, and he's like miles away. He's too slow.
Yeah.
So
and this is part where I like, in terms of what still feels true, is the legacy aspect of Flash. This is, Wally's a kid becoming the next Flash, which is, a little bit different, but the idea of passing on the mantle still.
Yeah, it feels
true.
like Mark Waid has all the right ideas for what he's going to do with the Flash. He's just not actually come up with what the actual specifics of his story are yet.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so it comes back to present day, and there's like a weird like effect, presumably from this time traveler who kind of, stops them from interacting, and Wally's like, oh, that was weird.
Yeah.
And she kind of looks back at him as well. It's kind of a weird moment. I feel like this moment would make a lot more sense if I'd read the actual thing it's tying into.
Probably. And it's at that point, I actually think this is kind of a strange inclusion to the trade. I mean, in terms of completionism of, okay, it is Flash by Mark Waid, sure. But I feel like, whereas in the last issue, there was stuff where I went, I could see maybe this or that popping up in the run. There's very little in this, outside of the core thematic idea that we just mentioned. I don't suspect much of it shows up. I mean, maybe I'll be wrong, but I don't suspect it does.
I think it will. I guess completion's sake, because it's Flash by Mark Waid, and I think people would be annoyed if it wasn't there, just because, hey, this annual's just missing to time because it won't get collected anything else. So unless there's some Armageddon collection at some point.
Well, yeah, they might well. Who knows? But it's a sort of thing where I'd say, hey, if people just wanted to jump into the run, this issue I'd feel is skippable if you wanted to, and I don't think it's not a must read by any stretch. It's okay, it's solid enough, but it's not exciting. Having
read some of this first trade before, I will say that it does get better once we hit the next issue. We hit the main issues.
I would have hoped so, yeah.
So that's cool. But we give it.
I'm gonna give it a 6 because it's okay. It just feels. Maybe this would have felt better at the time, but right now it feels kind of inconsequential and just kind of weird. But there's it's well told enough.
Yeah. Well, I'll go with 6.5. I think I'll go a little bit higher because I think it's well done. It's just it's in this weird place because of what it is, and it's a little bit too long. So cut it down for that. But that'd be my thing. So that's Flash Annual issue 4. So next time we actually go to a regular issue, so regular length, which is good.